Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? This is Amanda. Today is the 24th of January, 2024. We have a double 24 energy. That feels as though it is relevant for what I'm talking about today. And we'll come to that later. But a warm welcome to my channel. This is going to be really interesting, I think. To be honest, I did not know I was even going to be talking about this until 3 hours ago. And how it's come in, I'm not going to be talking about the war in this video, but I was looking at the news this morning. There is a report in the papers in the UK today where some high up army chief has basically come out and said that if there was to be a war, we would need to have conscriptions in the UK because we don't have enough people in the army. As I read that, straight away I heard Metatron say, Generation Z will not turn up. To which I felt as though I wanted to say yes, because it feels as though this is a generation that are going to be doing it. And by it, I mean life in a completely different way. So let's park the war stuff for one moment. We might come back to it, but it's not what the main feature of this video is. What Metatron asked me to do is explore who are Generation Z, also called Generation Z. Some people pronounce it like that. I've just checked with my daughter, who is a member of the tribe, and she said, you can pronounce it either way, Mum. I call us Gen Z. So I'm going to refer to them as Gen Z. You might have birthed one. I've birthed two. You might be a parent to one. You might be teaching them, you might be a boss of one, you might be a friend of one, but I tell you what, you know one, because it's estimated that 20% of the world's population are Generation Z right now on this planet. And why I'm being asked to look at this particular group, I think, is in relation to their age, the age that they are becoming now. So Generation Z, the dates vary a little bit dependent on what source you look at, but generally they are children who were born in the mid to late 90s, going towards the early 2010s. So if you want a ballpark, I'm going to say 1997 till 2012, okay? So within that time period, 1997 to 2012, this is the generation that came in. Before I go any further, I would just like to reiterate that we're going to be talking about characteristics of this particular generation. You may very well see characteristics that you have as well, born in previous generations or in generations that have been born since Generation Z. And it's very important to remember that when we see similarities in a group, it is because ultimately we are all one. It's just that in particular generations, there are often defined characteristics that are more exaggerated. And one of the most fascinating things about Generation Z is that they are what is called, just referring to my notes, the first digitally native generation. They grew up and have never known anything other than a world full of social media, the internet, and smartphones. Now, I went and had a little look at when YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of these things that are in use now in our world and we take for granted, and of course the internet, actually came into being. And it is within the time frame that these kids were born, or just after they were born. So certainly up to the point of time when they were getting to an age where they were interested in learning. So, for example, Google was launched in 1998. That was a year after the start of this generation flooding into the planet. YouTube was founded in 2005. Facebook was founded in 2004. Instagram 2010. TikTok and Snapchat have obviously been later additions. But yeah, this generation have never known anything other than having the internet, having the phones, having social media. Us who are older generations, we may very well be using them just as much as Gen Z, but we remember a time before it. So that aspect really interests me. So let's have a look then. I think it might be interesting just to try to bring them alive a little bit, to talk about, I'm going to talk about spiritual characteristics and what defines them, why they basically came in a great big wave as a whole to our world and what they contribute in a moment. But just to sort of bring them alive as a tribe, as a generation, I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at some of the world events, just very briefly this is, some of the world events that have happened during their lifetime. Some of the main influencers, stroke celebrities, stroke role models that are Gen Z, and also some of the words that they use, because if you are a parent like I am, you will have grown up hearing words that you haven't got the faintest idea what they are talking about, but you have to learn quickly. Because the whole point with new generations coming in is that we have to adapt as older generations. So, I mean, yeah, some of the words, for example, that I've got written down here, one of my pet hates is peng, I have to say. Everything is peng. Riz was apparently the word of 2023. Beef, to have a beef with somebody is to have an argument. High key, low key, my daughters use that all the time. Glow up, I didn't know what that was when they started to talk about a glow up. It's to do with having a makeover. Gassed, to be excited. It goes on and on. There are so many words. And it does feel as though they have their own language to a degree. They are actually changing the language. But that doesn't mean that necessarily they're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as I always say. Certainly from my own experience with my own girls, I've seen a absolute interest in going back to the old words as well. So I'm talking about the classics. They definitely seem to be a generation that have the propensity to learn if, and it is a big if, they are in the right environment to do so. So there is a curiosity there to explore old texts, old books. So it's not just a case of replacing it with something else, it's both. In terms of some of the people then that have become famous or infamous, I suppose Gen Z, there's just a list that I got off the internet. Shawn Mendes, XXX Tentaction. I would actually love to channel him one day. He is one of the people that passed over when my girls have been alive, that they were devastated when he died, absolutely devastated. And I remember looking at it, you know, and we live in an area here in England where people like him, and I'm talking about how he looks and his music, they're not necessarily walking down the street. And I was like, and then I learnt what it was about him that my girls particularly loved, and he definitely spoke for this generation. Other people, Kylie Jenner, Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, Greta Thunberg, Dylan Wang, Mr. Beast, we've all heard of Mr. Beast, Juice WRLD, Jake Paul, Zendaya, Marla Yousafzai, can't say her name, Naomi Osaka, Lamar Jackson, Marcus Rashford, Millie Bobby Brown. That's just a few that I was able to pluck from the internet, this resource that we now take for granted, but they really take for granted because they've known no other way. So some of the world events, things that have happened since this generation came to Earth. Interesting that 1997, which seems to be the launch pad for this generation, was the death of Princess Diana, which was one of, and I've got chills as I'm about to say what I'm about to say, it was one of the biggest portals that opened in terms of the heart chakra awakening across this planet. There was an outpouring of collective grief. Didn't have to just be for Diana, it was for all of the losses that we've had. And it's as though these beautiful children just came in response to that. It's really stunning. So death of Princess Diana, the Twin Towers coming down, 9/11. The euro was created in Europe. I think that's interesting again, just because of the homogenization of a specific group of countries, centralization of a group of countries. And again, the difference in different types of money across Europe is sort of alien to them. What else? The Iraq War. Now, again, these are all just energies that were fermenting, that were underground, that were happening as the generation were growing. And it does shape you. It absolutely shapes you, even if you don't consciously know that it is. Because this generation are very, very in tune with the collective. They're very in tune with events. They will have absorbed a lot of this stuff. Now, it can also be that they came to absorb it, but then also transmute it. And in relation to, for example, the Iraq War, which we know now was sold to us on false promises of weapons of mass destruction being aimed at, for example, my country, able to get here in 45 minutes, a tissue of lies. They grew up with that energy of war, but being misled into war. And you will see this generation are not going to be marched off to war again, certainly not for a cause that they do not believe in and that they know there are lies involved in it. Okay, so this morning's trigger, I suppose, by Metatron to say, I want you to talk about Gen Z, it was to do with, if there was another war, this would be the generation that would be being asked to be signing up. And I just got a flat no. What happens if no one turns up to war? If there's nobody to fight the wars? Then the war machine has a real problem. So the Iraq War, also, this wave of emotion that they seem to have come in on. And of course, all generations have it, to a degree. Of course they do. I'm just talking about this specific generation. But the Indonesian tsunami, that huge literal wave that came in and swept so many people away. We've had very powerful political figures on our stage, such as Obama and Trump. Certainly Obama, the whole rise of a black president for the first time was something. And again, ramifications for that in terms of equality. And it's like, well, why wouldn't somebody who is not white be a president? Why would they not? Why would a woman not be able to rise to a position of power? It's just an anathema to this generation in terms of, well, why is there even a boundary there? Why is there a ceiling that has to be smashed through? They don't get it. They don't understand it. They've also, of course, lived through the pandemic, and I think I'm going to ask Spirit specifically about that because it's definitely shaped them. And I don't know whether it's stalled them temporarily or not. I know without getting too personal about my own daughters, but, the whole thing about going out and exploring and adventuring, having a couple of years where you're told you can't go out of your front door, I think that does something to your psyche. So I'd like to look at that. The Me Too movement, and of course all of the information out there with regards to what is going on with our climate. And I'm just going to say that because there are different theories in terms of what is happening to our climate. But they've grown up with definitely a pervasive sense of fear that is in the collective with regards to changing weather patterns. And depending who they're listening to, of course, that can trigger a lot of fear and anxiety. I do remember, this was a couple of years ago, just talking to one of my girls, and something came up about having children in the future. I think they've shifted from this position, but at the time they were like, well, why would we? Because we might not even be here. And I said, what do you mean we might not even be here? And they were talking about the stuff that they'd heard with regards to climate and what might happen to the planet. And I thought, wow, this generation, we have a responsibility to mentor and teach them and help them and steward them, because they've come in with extraordinary gifts, but they also need the support so that they don't get maybe manipulated or put into a lower fear state energy, and all of that. So that's some of the events, that's some of the people, that's some of the words that basically identify this generation, what we're going to call Gen Z. So let's get to my little list of things that I'd like to tune into. And one thing I did ask off camera was, because they do feel very homogenous, they really feel as though they belong together, actually. They might not realise that, of course. Sometimes it's only when you get older and you look at your generation and you think, well, yeah, I'm sort of glad you're still here with me because you've got my references. You understand what happened in the 80s or the 70s or the 60s or whatever generation you came in on. I think in time they will start to realise how much they need each other, actually. But I asked, okay, so they came in on this homogenous wave. Is there one particular energy that is really guiding them, okay, guiding them? And what I'm about to say in response to what I heard, I don't want to trigger anybody, because this isn't about traditional religion. It's not about traditional religion, because this generation are more spiritual. They're more fluid in all senses of the word with regards to many different subjects and many different areas. And faith is one of them. So they don't see the rigid barriers that we have maybe put up between different religions. That you are, you're a Hindu or you're a Buddhist or you're a Christian or you're a Muslim or you're a New Age, and you can't, if you're one, you can't be anything else, and you've got to go and you've got to do, no. So what I basically heard in terms of who is guiding them was Jesus, okay? Jesus is the Christ energy, but it's not the church, okay? It is not the church. It is Jesus, it's the Christ energy, it's the Christ consciousness energy in a beautiful, fluid, truly loving, unifying force, okay? And as I say, so I heard that very clearly. I'd like first, I think, to start with technology and this group. So I'm going to tune in. I'm going to ask Spirit about technology. Two things that I've written off camera that came to me and that Spirit gave me were, let's start with this one. It's literally just happened in my house. They are the most adept at dealing with the online world. So they are less likely, for example, to get scammed. They can see through it, okay? They are the most able to adapt to AI and all of the advances to come, because to them, well, it's like us. I remember being in whatever year it was at school, fifth year of secondary school, and you had to be in the top math set to get on a computer. Otherwise, no one ever was able to get on a computer because they weren't, for the whole school didn't have them. They were just coming in. Computers were just coming in. It was a new thing. And I look back on it and I realised actually it was a pretty seamless transition. If you think back for yourself, it's just we've got used to it. Us oldies, we've got used to the fact one day we didn't have the computer and then we did. And we adjusted quite well. Older people like myself are now finding it, I think, a little bit more difficult to adjust to the latest thing, which is this AI. But the younger generation, Gen Z, as an example, they're going to adjust like we did to the internet. It's going to be much easier for them for whatever reason, okay? Because it was part of their soul contract to come and experience this early on. And they do say, don't they, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And I think that's true. Sometimes we get older and it's like, no, I like it the way it was and I don't want it to change. Whereas youngsters come in and it's like, well, of course it's going to change. Why would it not change? That's why I came to this world, because it's an adventure playground and, you know, let's have an adventure. So they're more adept at being able to adapt to AI, less likely to be scammed. But I noticed this morning. My girls have just gone off to the cinema and I gave them a little bit of money and I handed them some notes. Okay, so I said, come on, just take this, you know, just in case you need a taxi back or you need an ice cream or whatever. And Lucy said to me, she said, oh, can't I just have your card? You know, I don't want your cash. Can't I have your card? It's easier. And I said, no, take the cash. But I realised what in her head, she hasn't even computed what happens if the cash machines don't work. What happens if, as I've said before, it all goes down. The online world goes down and we have to resort to the old ways, which is actually to pay you, I need to give you a note. My card doesn't work. Okay, my card doesn't work. This thing that I'm so reliant on, whether it be the phone in my hand, the card, it doesn't work. It is a possible thing that can happen. But for this generation, because they've never known anything else other than what they've been brought up with, it's not in the back of the mind like it is for us. So we have to teach them that, okay? We have to teach them that. And I'm also now being shown, you know, this goes into, I suppose, base chakra type area. So with regards to things like food, I'm not saying become a prepper, but I am saying be somebody who, as Metatron always says, has sensible precautions in place. And I'm talking about a generation that have never seen, maybe a little bit via pandemic, and maybe a lot if you're watching this in a part of the world which has got very severe economic problems, you know, countries where literally there is nothing on the shelves because the economy has crashed. But again, where I am, you know, I'm very fortunate. The UK's shelves are stocked full and never haven't not been stocked full, apart from the ridiculous toilet paper crisis of a few years ago, you know, which was just beyond ridiculous. But anyway, we won't get into that. The point is, isn't it, that, again, they've never known anything other than full shelves. They don't remember the times of rationing. I don't remember the times of rationing. I've never lived through that. But the generation that did live through rationing have a lot to teach and pass down. And it's very interesting that, you know, I think a lot of Gen Z and a lot of younger people generally, some of them are time travelers, okay? Because I've noticed on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, sometimes it's the youngsters that are bringing back the old skills. Which my generation, maybe, not exclusively, have forgotten. So I'll give you an example. The thing about jarring meat, you know, so you put raw meat or cooked meat. I don't even know how to do it. But, you know, preserving food is what I'm talking about. You preserve meat or fish or vegetables, the art of preserving, but, you know, it's what they still do probably in places such as Russia and all the rest of it. You know, it's very cold, but equally it doesn't just have to be a cold climate. But they've picked it up. Have they picked it up from their grandma or their granddad? Maybe so. But some of them, I think it's coming because they're just remembering that this is what we used to have to do. Because one day there might not be what you want on the supermarket shelf. And then what are you going to do? So that's really interesting. But anyway, technology. Let's see what else there is to say with regards to technology. I'm going to go back to Metatron. I'm going to use my attunement and connection spray to Metatron throughout this video. Gen Z technology. Okay, he's saying to me that technology to this generation, it's literally running through their lifeblood. Their struggle is going to be, what happens if it gets turned off? How would they be able to cope and adapt? If there is, and I have predicted this, as have many people, that the grid will go down at some point. The more I'm tuning into it, I actually think it's a necessary thing to happen, because it's a way to unify us, shock us into our senses, bring us back to each other, raise our head from the phone that we're on. Like, oh, something actually is happening out there in the world. I actually need to do something. There's all sorts of reasons why the grid might have to go down to shock us. Metatron calls it a wake-up call for humanity. I think this generation he's saying this generation are really going to struggle with that. But he's now showing me that they can detox quite easily given the opportunity. That they need to be detoxing more than they do. And I'm being shown the forest, I'm being shown trees, I'm being shown nature. And that is absolutely imperative for them to be able to balance this technological cloud that they live under, that we all live under, but they've never known a time when they're not under the technological cloud. They need nature to balance in a very profound and deep way. And he's saying that some of the mental health issues in our world right now amongst this generation are linked into technological overdose. He's actually putting it in those terms, technological overdose. It's literally like a junkie with a needle sticking out of their arm, but what's sticking out of the arm is basically technological overload, not being able to navigate life without a phone. Now, we can see ourselves in this because we're all compliant and guilty to a degree of that, but it's just very pronounced in this generation. So what does a junkie do? What does somebody do who has OD'd? They need to detox. And I'm just being shown the rich green energy being so absolutely imperative to this generation. And I'm seeing green more than other colours. Okay, so nature, of course, is made up of many colours. So I'm being shown the beach, the sand, the desert, the sea. All of that, yes, is good as well. But there's something about the richness of the lushness of and the nature of the green energy. He's saying it's because it also takes them back into their heart. Because one thing technology can do is it can take you away from your heart, and you can forget that you've got this brain sitting here, because the heart has brain cells, believe it or not, and their heart came in with so much to give the world, and they need to be nourished with this green energy. So for youngsters that you might have around you, if you are a Gen Z watching me now, whoever you are, surround yourself with this beautiful green energy. And the two types of green that I'm seeing are olive green and rich green. So, with regards to my sprays, I suppose the rich green would be emerald. And that might seem quite a dense colour for a group that are very, very high vibration. We'll come into their starseed status in a moment, but they've come in with an extraordinary amount of light. So it's like, are you sure that feels a very heavy, dense colour? That's why they need it, okay? Because there is a lack of grounding a lot of the time. They find it very hard to ground. And again, technology can take them away from their own body, from their own heart, and from their own path, actually. So so that's the first thing that I'm seeing there. Let's just spray this green energy. This is the Emerald Renewal and Recovery. Oh, and I didn't mention it, but one of the things that also happened during the time that this generation were growing up was the Where is it? It's linked to Northern Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement happened. Again, it's symbolic. The Good Friday Agreement has sealed decades of peace in Northern Ireland. So this generation have grown up, thank God, not seeing petrol bombs thrown down the street all the time and people being murdered. And we forget how horrendous the Troubles were, how divided those communities were. I know many of you lived through it, my followers in Belfast and Northern Ireland. But this generation haven't known that. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because when you grow up with something as a norm, it becomes a norm. Peace is the norm. Why would we go back to the old ways? So you might have some of the old brigade trying to stir up trouble again and bring it back. But I feel as though it's going to fall on deaf ears. This generation feel more peace-loving. And I did notice in some of the comments this morning with regard to this thing about war and subscription and, well, you know, good luck getting Generation Z out of bed. I mean, yeah, I understand that. I understand that. But the point is, that's just sarcastic and it's a lower energy, because actually underneath it, there's more of a pacifist type energy. It's like, why would I go and fight a stranger in a foreign land that I've got no beef with, to put it in their language? I've got no beef with this person. I've got no argument with this person. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? It's an anathema to them. I do wonder also, I mean, this is just a theory. I'll ask Spirit in a moment whether I'm right. This is my theory. It makes sense to me that a lot of this generation have come back and they did fight in the previous wars. And I'm talking about the 2 world wars, particularly First World War, I'm feeling. And so if you've done that and you've seen the bloodshed and you've seen what war actually creates, and you've seen the fat cats up here, the warmongers who just say, do it, fight, but never get their boots dirty, you wouldn't want to repeat it again, would you? So Metatron, am I right in that? Gen Z, is there a high proportion of them who came back quite quickly after dying in one of the other 2 wars? Let's just see what he has to say about this. I'm just going to wait for an image or a word. Metatron. Gen Z, past life, war. Yeah, he's showing me a white flag. He's showing me a white flag. Some of them, yes, he's saying, but he's also showing me that many of them have experience of wars on other planets. Now, that rather contravenes sometimes what other people in the spiritual community say, which is that Earth is the only planet that is dense and has wars, but I'm being told that is not the case. Not all planets are friendly, there are other planets out there, he's saying, where absolutely wars have been fought. And even if these were thousands of years ago, the memory of war stays within the DNA and is very pronounced. And it can be spiked, is the word he's saying. It can be spiked and it can be activated when they hear mention of war. And I see them just fleeing off the battlefield. It's like, no, we're not doing that again. Last time I had to go over the trenches, I had to step in sorry about the language, I had to step in the guts of my best friend. I had to kill somebody who I didn't want to kill. I am not doing it again. I really feel that. Very, very strongly. So I do think the Warhawks are going to have a very hard time fielding a proper army if it ever came to it, fielding a sizable army. And this is across the whole world, with the exception of countries where you are fearing for your life if you say no. I mean, there will still be people who say no, even in fear of their life and imprisonment within Gen Z. But I'm seeing, for example, North Korea, okay, and China, places like that, where it's literally like you've got a gun to your head, you're going to go and fight, otherwise I'm going to shoot you. But I'm still feeling in that situation, there will still be some that say, shoot me then. I'm not doing it. But some people, of course, the survival instinct is very strong. But generally across the world, there's definitely many of them are just like, it's an anathema. No, why would I do that? Why would I do that? No, I'm not doing it. I'm not fighting your war for you, is what I'm hearing. I'm not fighting your war for you, because these people came at the bequest of the Christ consciousness energy. They came to help us seed peace. So they're not going to be, that's what they're here to do, basically. They're here to seed peace. So rather than seeing them, and I've seen comments along the lines of this, online, which can be very apathetic and they don't want to do anything. And it's not that. It's just that, put it this way, Mother Earth is still operating on an old blueprint and an old template. One of those templates, and it's a very heavy metal jacket. I know there was a film, very heavy metal jacket that is over the earth, and it's the jacket of war. And it's like, do as I will say. Do as I will say. You will sign up. You will fight. You will kill. And you will do what you're told. And they came to take that jacket off. Now, they're not going to be able to take it off in one generation, okay? There are generations upon generations upon generations coming in behind them, because ultimately the grip of war on this planet will recede. But it's generational change. It weakens every generation. The impulse to fight gets weaker. So just see this generation as being very important in helping to, what Metatron's saying is, release some of the buttons on the jacket, okay? So the full metal jacket across the earth, this generation are coming to release some of the buttons, okay? Other generations will come in and rip the jacket off. But this one is just about, it's releasing the grip of war. So, interesting. Okay, let's move on to another subject. LGBTQ, the whole energy of gender and sex and how you identify. I have actually covered this in another video, which I will link below. Many people didn't want to hear the message that I brought through when I brought it through, and I got widely attacked for bringing it through, but I'm still going to link it below. It has a lot of good information in there. It wasn't, of course, specifically Generation Z I was talking about, but by the way, if I've said another generation, if I've slipped and said Generation X anywhere, hopefully I haven't, but I'm talking Generation Z in this video, okay? So I'll put that below. But definitely this is a generation that came to explore what is gender? What is gender? In particular, how do I identify? And as I said in my previous video, we have the rise of the divine feminine across our whole world. I feel that this group can be, I mean, all groups can be, but can be easily manipulated via other people with agendas. So I think that's happening, basically. Whereas actually the premise that they came in on was very innocent. It's literally just, I want to explore what gender is. As a group, they came in to explore that. But there have been agendas that have now been put onto that, and policies that have been put onto that are not of their doing. But it's almost like they've become the whipping boy for the people above them who are trying to seed division and separation. Yeah? This thing about identification as well, let's get away from gender for a moment. But again, I know this generation, sometimes they're very easily mocked, and they can also mock themselves. I'm going to talk about the rise of children or youngsters wanting to identify, for example, as an animal. So the furry brigade. Now, when I first heard of the furries, I have to be honest, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My daughters were going to college and they came back and they said, there's a furry corner in the college. And people, the ones that identify as furries can just go and sit there. I said, what on earth are you going on about? And they explained to me what it was. And These people identified as a horse or a dog or whatever it was, and they were there in their well, they wouldn't call it a costume. They would, whatever they could call it. I'm not even going to get into it. But I want to say something about this group, okay? It's all got quite twisted and it's got very manipulated. And I talked this morning in a video on Facebook about the A route and the B route. The A route is the route that this generation are supposed to be on, which is to do with their soul mission, the energies they're meant to be working with, the things that are meant to happen, okay? So it's the A route, it's their soul path. But there's a B route, and the B route is full of distractions and dead ends and people manipulating, betraying. And this furry thing, to me, it's like this generation have gone down a B route, because actually underneath it all, what I'm being told is it's a love of animals. It's an energy of, it's people, it's youngsters who, they just get that we are all connected, that we are all one, that we're really all one, that the animals matter just as much as the humans, that the sea matters just as much as you and me, that what's happening in the sky matters, what's happening to that dog matters, what's happening to, I saw something on, I don't know, wherever it was yesterday, about the two last white rhinos in the world, and they're being protected, thank God, by, guardsmen in part of Africa. And I think they're two females, and then they'll be gone. And it's like this generation passionately cares about the environment and animals, but that doesn't mean that because they love animals that they're meant to be one, yeah? That's where it's got twisted. That's where they're not sometimes fully understanding it. And I will say this as well. I also think, not in all cases, but in some, the over-identification with wanting to be a female, if you're male, it's not in all cases, but in some, it's because they're feeling the divine feminine energy that they came in with. They are at one with the divine feminine energy that they came in with. They know that the future of our planet is the divine feminine matrix, replacing the old patriarchal matrix. But it doesn't mean that they need to lose their actual sex that they came in with and become a woman. It's about embracing the divine feminine energy as a man, as a woman, with the exception of people who genuinely are confused with regard to their sex. And there've always been people like that, and there always will be. But there's also another huge amount of people that unfortunately have been manipulated and are now jumping on an agenda, which is that you're in the wrong body. Whereas actually what they're feeling is that they love this divine feminine energy. Yeah? So it's about... But it doesn't mean that you've got to become one. You can still be a divine feminine energy in a masculine body. Anyway, I have said more on that in the video I've already done. I'll link it below. We're going to move on now. I want to talk about this group's aspirations. One thing that I have observed, and I noted this morning, Spirit gave me, was, again, this can be easily ridiculed in terms of, are you sure about that? But I think I am sure. Spirit told me. They're much more about living in the present moment. Put it this way, my generation, I'm Generation X. So, we were brought up to go to school, get an education, get your job, get your house, get married, do your time in your work, then do this, then do that. It was all very, very regimented. And I know not everybody, but a lot of us were, okay? And it was because we were striving for something in the future, the elusive golden egg in the future, okay, whatever the hell that was, yeah? The accolade, the award, the position in the company, yeah? Doesn't work for this generation. They're like in the present day. They're just living in the present moment. It's like, what happens, why, that was quite funny. I don't know how it even came up, but the subject of life insurance came up the other day. For some reason, John brought it up with the girls, and I could see Lucy's face was just like, it's like, what the hell are you going on about? And I got it. I said to John, I said, she doesn't want to hear about it. It's just like, you're talking double Dutch. I mean, there's always been a degree of that in every generation. I would probably have been the same in my early 20s, but even more so now. You know, it's like, I'm living for the moment. I'm living for the moment. And, you know, again, the rise of the influencer, many of them, you know, obviously because they grew up on social media, so they see the influencers. I want to be like that. I've got to capture the moment. I'm here. You know, I need to show people I'm here. I'm at Niagara Falls. I'm wherever I am, Great Wall of China. Here's my picture to prove it. But it's about living in the moment. But again, there's a danger of not living in the moment, because that's the A road they're meant to be doing. Be in the moment, okay? Did I say this last video? There was a picture that was taken on New Year's Eve somewhere. I don't know what country it was, but to be honest, whatever country it was, it could have been anywhere. I think it could have been somewhere like France or London, because it was like the Mall in London or the Champs-Élysées in France. And the clock was about to strike midnight. And there was a huge just swathe of people all the way up the street. But you couldn't see any of them because the photo was just all of them holding up their phones. And it was just thousands and thousands of phones. The phone was having a great time. The phone was in the present moment, but they weren't. They weren't. It was all about the phone capturing it, not them capturing it. And again, this is true for all of us. But again, this generation particularly so. Be very, very careful with regards to that. 101 has just come up as I'm talking to you. Binary code, numbers. They're very tuned into numbers, to numerology, even if they don't know it's called numerology. They see the numbers on the clock, the 1111, the 2222. Might have taken us decades to realise, hold on, I'm always seeing that number. They see it all the time. Spirit is trying to wake them up in a language that is going to be compatible with them. So, you know, they are getting codes via the phones, okay, via the numbers that they see. So they're living in the present moment. What is their aspirations? This group, what is their aspirations? I mean, obviously, this is very general. It's going to be different for different individuals because by nature, they are a very individual group, even though they came in on this homogenous wave. If you look at some of these people of the ones that have made it, as it were, some of the influencers, they're so random and so different. You can go from Greta Thunberg to Billie Eilish, I know I've said her name, to Mr. Beast, to Millie Bobby Brown. They're just different. It's like, where's the common thread? Well, the common thread is the generation, but they're finding their own way. So general as we can be, but aspirations of this group. You see, I'm hearing not money, and it's interesting because some of these people in this group, and I'm going to single out Kylie Jenner. I have to say I'm not a fan of the Kardashians, so there might be a bit of bias coming through here, but I'm just not. Had that argument with my girls many times, or one of them anyway. It's all about money. It's all about acquiring the money and the status. Although I'm told they do a lot of good as well. Let's take it away from Blinking Kylie. Okay, let's take it away from any of them. What I'm being told is that the crux, the heart energy of this generation is not about money. It's not about acquiring the pension fund and being able to retire early or any of that. That's not what they're aspiring to. But they have got, what's the word I want here? I'm hearing witches and warlocks in the mix who are distracting them from their path, who are trying to get them on that B road, which is, you do want money, really. Of course you do. Look what it brings you. Look how happy it makes you. But they're wise. They're wising up to the fact that actually it doesn't actually look that good. Or if they get the money, it's almost like they learn quicker than we did. It doesn't really bring you happiness. Makes you safe, yes. Keeps a roof over your head, yes. Pays the bills, yes, but over and above that, the pursuit of it just for the sake of the pursuit of it. So we have a altruistic energy with Gen Z, wanting to do something. It's just, I feel a lot of them haven't found what they want to do yet, and they've still got time. They still have got time. So if you're a Gen Z watching me, that's what I want to say to you, that you have still got time. You've got plenty of time to work it out, to work out what it is you're here to be doing. What is it that makes you feel happy, that brings you joy? But there's definitely an energy of, it's a more altruistic, less materialistic energy. But I am just seeing all of these players on the stage. I'm seeing them as players on the stage. I'm not even going to name who they are. But, you know, some of the stars dangling the gold, dangling the glitz, dangling this, dangling that. Are you sure you don't want that? It's a bit like the magician. It's like the sweet catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you know, dangling the sweeties. But they realise that actually the sweeties make their teeth rotten. And the sweeties are the gold. I can't even get the word out, the gold. Because it's not gold. To them, isn't just about the bling. I know it is for some of them. It's about the gold within them. What is the treasure that is within them? That's what they're here to discover. That's what they're here to bring. Aspirations. There's more of a sense of teamwork. There's less one-upmanship. I'm feeling that. Interesting. I'm hearing there's a natural balancing out rhythm within them. And I'm seeing them as a big group here now. It's almost as though, as a group, if it all starts to get a little bit too heightened with regards to anything, it's as though the group are able to bring back the balance. I've heard this from some of them as well. It's almost as though, you know, some of the woke stuff at the moment out there, and it's like, I feel as though there's going to be a bit more of a backlash against it. And believe it or not, it might come from some of the youngsters as well. It's almost as though they ride a wave and then it just gets too heightened, and they're just able to bring themselves back into rhythm, into balance. Interesting. Okay. What else do I want to say? Spirituality. So I'm going to ask Metatron about spirituality. Open to it all is what I'm hearing. Open to everything. Open to it all. I'm seeing one person here, representative of the generation, and they are running down this corridor, opening as many boxes and as many doors as they possibly can, seeing what's in them, having a good rummage, getting rid of what doesn't work, keeping what does, and then on to the next door. Fantastic. Not getting so stuck and so programmed with regards to spiritual and religious matters as other generations have, which is that I'm a this or I'm a that. I get it all the time. You know, it was the other day, it's like, well, how can you call yourself this when you do that? Someone said, how can you call yourself a Christian if you're doing tarot cards? And I'm like, number one, I don't actually call myself a Christian. I just love Jesus. I'm somebody who never left Jesus, but I left the church. So I don't class myself as a Christian. Number two, I don't class myself as New Age either just because I use tarot. I'm not going to be put into a box. And I think I'm telling you this also because a lot of the Gen Z have come to parents like me. We've got a bit of that arsiness in us, basically. You know, a bit of that rebel in us, definitely. So they've come to the right parents, which is just like, and they become a more exaggerated version of it. And what I mean by that is not about being unpleasant. It's just about, don't put me in a box. I hate being put in a box. The one thing you can do that will really piss me off is put me in a box. No way, Jose. And this generation even more so, you know? So, yeah, I love that. But anyway, this is also with regards to spirituality. They will dip in and out. That's what we need as well. We need that. And the respect. Now, where it can go wrong, okay, and where they can be led astray is, of course, if they are born into communities with a very heavy programming, or family with a very heavy programming. And that can happen, but they're there to break the shackles of that. Okay. And so you might find that, I think it goes one of two ways. Either you're born into a family like ours with a mother like me, who's sort of been a bit of a rebel anyway and has released some of the buttons, as we were talking earlier, with regard to various things, whose job isn't to take off the whole jacket in one lifetime, but I'm trying to do my bit just to release some of the shackles of the old energy. And then my children come in and do even more of it. So it can be like that. So you can be born into a family like that, or you're born into a family which is the total opposite, which is, it's like, very strict, very regimented. I'm being taken to places such as Utah, the Mormon energy, certainly also strict Catholicism, I don't know, any and many other type of situations. And they will rebel against that. Absolutely. They will rebel against that. And they're meant to rebel against that. So it can go one of two ways. But ultimately, they're here to find their own form of spirituality, what works for them. And let's just see. Let's go back to Metatron. What else is to say with regards to spirituality and Gen Z? They're more open to learning from each other. I'm seeing, it's this piece of symbolism, I'm seeing them sitting around a campfire, okay, but the flame is very, very tall and bright. And I keep being taken back to times of like the Ark of the Covenant with this group as well. It's as though there's some heavy biblical, historical energy that some of them are carrying. Because it's like the original fire, it's like the burning bush and all of that. But anyway, so I'm seeing them sitting around this fire, and it's more, again, it's the circle. It's not so hierarchical. It's more the circle. How can we learn from each other? And this is where social media is great for them, because they do share everything and anything. And they just need to have a good recycle bin, is what Metatron's saying, because it's almost like information in, information out. Just keep what's relevant. Archangel Metatron here is saying that they can turn to him to help with the recycling. Yeah. This is something that I've taught actually within a course I used to do. It's the recycling bin thing. And what you're meant to do is basically, in relation to where we're talking about here. So you're looking at things on social media, you're hearing all these different theories with regards to the planet, with regards to everything, war, COVID, all of it. You don't know what's true, what's not true, Hollywood, all of this. So take the information in, Metatron's saying, keep what resonates and then let go of what doesn't. They're not very good at clearing and cleansing and recycling energies that no longer are applicable or don't resonate. It's because they haven't been taught, he's saying. So you need to help them with that, to make them realize it's a conscious thing. They need to learn how to let go of energies, because they're very good at attracting energies, but not so good at releasing energies. So that is important. So how can we help them with that then, Metatron? By demonstrating it, he's saying, by demonstrating it. And it comes into the everyday life. It comes into practical things such as getting rid of possessions that you no longer need, clothes that are worn out, you're having a good clear out in your home, but also demonstrating and showing them that it's okay to change, it's okay to move on, that this is what change looks like. This is what I used to believe this, and I now don't. I now think this, those of you that are on Facebook, maybe not if you're Gen Z, you probably won't be on Facebook, but those of us that are on Facebook, especially on my personal page, sometimes a memory comes up from 10 years ago and I'm like wincing. I'm like, oh my God, did I really say that? Did I really believe that? And I think that is brilliant because it shows that my beliefs and my opinions have changed. If you see something and everything you see from 10 years ago, you're thinking, yep, and I still believe that, and that's still true. Well, bully for you, it shows that you haven't been able to expand your mind at all and take in the possibility that you could have been wrong, okay? And to say, I was wrong there. I thought I was wrong there. I could say a few things here, but I'm not going to because I'll get myself into trouble. But there've been a few big things, it's more people, where I really thought you were a good guy. And it's like, now it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I couldn't see that. But that's good because that's development. That's what we want. And so when we demonstrate that, it helps them. So Metatron's saying demonstrate movement and clearance and recycling, and he's saying, because it's a good analogy, recycling, because recycling means nothing's wasted. So I did once think that, I did once do this, but I learnt from it. What did I learn from it? And then that gets put back. It's part of education, yeah? Okay, spirituality. I think it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway in case it's not obvious. But a love, and I mean a love of probably everything that I've got around me here, okay? Crystals, sprays, I don't know, candles, incense, journals, affirmations, but they know how to do it. It's almost like they just know. They're attracted to Metatron saying tools they've used before in other lifetimes. So this isn't new to them. It's true for all of us, but it's a re-remembering. Okay. So what was the main mission that they came in with? Just so peace is what we've heard, to explore gender, to release the shackles of the old in many different ways. Okay, I'm hearing to learn what no is. Parents will smile at that one. Yeah. I'll share something personal here because it came up for me yesterday. Because remember, if you're a parent of one of these Gen Z, you're going to have a bit of what they've got in them because you made them. They came through you, so they have some of your stuff as well. Yeah, I'm on a diet. It's going very well, blah, blah, blah. Talked about it and then had a wobble this week and got through that, back on it. But the thing was, when I was really going into myself in terms of why am I wobbling and what is this, I realised it's because I don't like the word no. I don't like the word no. Even if I'm the one saying no. I'm the one saying no to myself, and it's right that I say no to myself. Because you don't need that donut, Amanda. You don't need that wine. You don't need to keep doing that. No is the right response. But I don't like it. And it was a real thunderbolt moment. I thought, wow, yeah, you don't like to be told. I mean, I know that anyway, because, yeah, it's who I am. That's why I'm self-employed. Why do you think I'm self-employed? Self-employed people tend to be people that like to run their own show. But, the shadow side can be, don't like to be told no. So, yeah, I've got that as a parent of a Gen Z. But Gen Z, absolutely, no is a big word that they need to learn. Okay, what does that mean then, Metatron, to them as a group? No. Okay, he's saying no in relation to the big things in the world. No, I'm not going to fight your war. No, I'm not. I mean, what else would be another example of it? The war one is the big one at the moment that's triggered this video. I'm hearing no to waste, actually. Now, remember, they're all on their path, okay? So if you're a parent to a Gen Z and, they are very wasteful, give them a bit of time, okay? I'm talking about the seeds that they came in with, the potential that they came in with. They might not fulfill that potential, but it's there, okay? So no to waste. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because this generation are very into recycling and vintage and retro and all of that, which is reusing something. Why do I need a new one? I can just recycle this one, or, you know, buy a secondhand one. So companies and businesses who are switched on are realizing that. So no to waste. It's just like no to the old ways. No to the old ways. Right, I'm realizing I've gone over an hour. Hopefully you're enjoying this video, but equally if I make it too long, people don't watch the video. So I'm going to wrap up, and I'm going to ask what they need from us. Okay. I think I've answered where are they going astray, because I do think they can be easily manipulated. And it's because of this. It's because they're meant to be very flexible and fluid, and they're natural explorers. They're natural born explorers. Isn't that interesting? There's a film that I referenced a while back called Natural Born Killers. These are natural born explorers. And isn't that a better way to be? They're not natural born killers. They're natural born explorers. But the nature of that is very fluid. It's like, I'll go here, I'll go there. But that's where you can get into trouble, because there needs to be a bit of the structure isn't maybe as good. They're not so good maybe with structure. And, you know, we can talk about the education system. Again, I've done a video on the education system about a year ago, homeschooling, all of that. I'll put it below if you'd like to relook at that. But, you know, it's trying to fit this generation into a box. Now, many of them, of course, have now left education, but it would be applicable in a working situation. It's like, what? I've got to sit at this desk 9 to 5 for the next 50 years, and you expect me to be happy with that? No, thank you very much. I'm off to go and do some traveling, you know, and then I'm going to come back and do some work. And what do you mean it's going to look bad on my CV? No, it's not, because I'm going to show, you know, they're creating new ways. We're the ones that have made these rules. You can't do that because you're going to have a gap on your CV. That's our stuff. That's where we wrote that script that said you can't take 6 months off and go and travel and then come back and reapply. Yeah. Why did we do that? I don't know. We did it though. They've come to release the buttons on that. Okay. But as I say, where they can go astray is it can be just a bit too fluid. It can be a bit too expansive. But as I said, they do have this natural sense of recalibration back, which is lovely. Right. Let's finish with what do they need from us? Gen Z, what do they need from us? I'm hearing discipline. And again, that can be a difficult one, because I mean, from my own experience, I grew up with a lot of discipline, okay? And I think there's been a reaction from that, okay? You know, being hit, being spanked, being, you know, you will do as you're told. You will do as you're told. That's not the answer either, okay? But neither is the answer just to let them be wild, abandoned and go and do what the hell you want. There has to be a middle path. So discipline is going to be hard for them to, discipline's not the right word. Structure is a better word, Metatron's saying. The structure, they struggle with structure, definitely. So maybe we need to help them with that, okay? Maybe we need to help them with that. Maybe we should not be quite so rigid either in terms of our expectations. Just because it's been a certain way forever doesn't mean it always has to be a certain way forever. What do they need from us? For some reason, I'm now getting fertility flowing in. And, you know, we do know we've got declining fertility rates across the world. They're going to need help with that, okay? This generation are going to need help with fertility more than any other generation have done. And so again, it's bringing traditional methods in to help them. So, you know, the traditional medical field has an answer and can help, as well as complementary therapies and all the rest of it. It's the merging of the two. What do they need from us? I'm hearing sympathy. And that's an interesting one, because I don't mean that in a patronising way. I mean that they are inheriting quite a difficult world at the moment. Quite a difficult world. I don't know if yesterday you saw, but the doomsday clock has stayed 90 seconds towards midnight. You know, we can have we can have our own thoughts with regards to that in terms of who is behind the doomsday clock, and is it all a fear-mongering exercise? Yes, probably. But the truth remains that there are many very complex problems in our world. And my dad, bless him, you know, he's 82 now, and he's very positive, and he's full of life, and he still lives his life, and brilliant, absolutely role model. But, you know, he said to me the other day, he said, he sort of said it under his breath, but I knew what he was trying to say, which was sort of like, I'm sort of quite glad I'm towards the end of it all, because it's all looking a bit scary out there. But he's probably had forgotten the enthusiasm of youth. And actually, you do just roll your sleeves up and you get on with it, because every generation has a problem. But there are a lot of problems in our world at the moment. So when it says sympathy, it's about, there's a lot of unkindness out there. You see that, you know, it's like, oh, they're just lazy. They're this, they're that. They won't get off their backsides. They won't do this, they won't do that. It's try to have some sympathy and kindness and gentleness, because our job is to coach them, to mentor them, to help them, to support them, to walk with them into this new world, whatever that means, for as long as we're meant to be with them. Yeah. I'm also hearing, this is a family thing, but to remind them of their ancestral line is important as well, where they've come from, the rich line, the heritage line that is behind them, willing them on as well. What do they need from us? I just hear structure. Okay, structure. And love, goes without saying, love. And tolerance and patience. And for us to listen, I'm hearing, for us to listen. To not be closed-minded, to listen to their ideas, to their hopes, to their fears, to their future, because they are the future. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Hope you enjoyed that today. Lots of love, everybody. Take care. Thank you. Please like and subscribe to the channel. It's free if you'd like to do that. Bye-bye.